that, I will let you get started.
All right, thanks, Meredith. So yeah, like I said, I'm Kiriana Parks, just Kiri is fine. And I work for Mother's Refuge as the program coordinator. And today I'm going to be talking to you about babies having babies, essentially. And before we really dive in too deep, I just want to say if any of you have comments, questions, please feel free to add them into the chat whenever during this presentation. It's a little funny to be talking to what feels like a blank screen, but I know it's not. So a little bit about my professional background. Let me move my screen here so I can look at my presentation and talk to you guys. A little bit about my professional background. I have an undergrad in special education, cross-categorical disabilities, which is primarily high instance disabilities like learning disabilities, ADHD, things of that nature. And then I taught for 4 years in St. Charles, Missouri. While there, I taught at high school and I developed an at-risk youth program. So I was working with kids who had IEPs, but might also be in foster care, have really poor school attendance, low socioeconomic status, probably have had some involvement with state care before. I went on and got my master's in special education from University of Kansas. And then I had babies and decided to mix everything up and work for Mother's Refuge. So right now I work for Mother's Refuge and I've been here for 2.5 years. As Meredith said, we are a group home for pregnant or parenting young women ages 12 to 21. And we provide total wraparound care. So we are ensuring first and foremost that all safety and medical care needs are met. A lot of our moms, when they come in, have never had any form of prenatal care. They might have been in a domestically violent situation. They might be in state custody. Right now, we have 8 girls at the house, and 3 of them are in state care and are minors. So there's a lot to consider. We also are helping girls get enrolled to school, finish their GED, get jobs, all while learning how do I be a mom, how do I parent successfully, and how do I break generational cycles that I've experienced. So I've linked our website where you can find plenty more about our work and what we do. But that being said, I've had a lot of experience working with adolescent parents, and there are a lot of different considerations specific to this population. So first, we have just your standard medical considerations. I have 2 children myself, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And being pregnant is a lot. There's a lot that can go wrong. And even if nothing's going wrong, you're having all of these weird symptoms and wondering if, hey, is something wrong about half of the time? At least that was my experience. I know a lot of my friends and family could relate to that. As I mentioned, a lot of teens do not get prenatal care until later on in their pregnancies. For an adult woman going through a normal pregnancy, it's recommended to see a doctor within the first 12 weeks of conception. So just that lack of access or the lack of knowledge that like, hey, I need to be seen by my OBGYN can put them at risk for a wide variety of health problems. The 3 main things to have in consideration are high blood pressure. Preeclampsia is of risk for teens especially. So a lot of our moms here, their doctors choose to be preventative and put them on aspirin out the gate. So monitoring blood pressure is important, or knowing the signs of preeclampsia if you're not familiar and you are working closely with a mom who's pregnant and a teen. Just off the top of my head, I know swelling in the feet and hands, seeing spots, debilitating headache that seems to come out of nowhere. And just knowing, hey, this can happen for teens, they're at a higher risk, and knowing to call their doctor, go to the hospital. Also more at risk for premature birth and low birth weight, which can come with its own litany of comorbidities or problems that go with that. So the education aspect of the medical considerations is important. Telling these teens it's important to go to your doctor regularly, and here's why: to have those urine analysis, to have your ultrasounds, ensuring that the teen has quality prenatal vitamins that are available to them, And a big one that we experience here is continuing to recommend condoms when having intercourse to prevent STIs. So a lot of teens might have that mentality of, I'm already pregnant, I can't get pregnant again. But they are still at risk for STIs, and condoms are the only form of contraception that can protect against that. So that's something that's a little bit uncomfortable to talk about, but very important, as those can be passed on to baby. So we also want to take into account the teen's development, and that's where we're going to spend a lot of our time in this short presentation today. If you're not familiar with Erikson's psychosocial stages, I am a huge Erik Erikson fan. I really connect with his work and have found it to be very applicable to my life and my career. So if you're not familiar, it's broken down into 8 stages from infancy onto old age. So basically every stage has a conflict that they're trying to work through. So for infants, it's trust versus mistrust. And the hope is babies learn, I can trust the world, and they can move on. Babies who might have been neglected or such in infancy might carry that mistrust through adulthood and as they progress through these stages. So primarily, we're going to focus on infancy, early childhood, and adolescence today. But if you're not familiar with Erikson's work, I would highly recommend that you look into it. It's very interesting and very applicable. So I do a lot of parenting classes here at Mother's Refuge, and I also go over the Erikson stuff with them. But we teach that each psychological stage should be the basis for parenting decisions at that age. So I like to kind of have conversations with the girls as they're still pregnant and say, like, what do you think? Like, you're seeing other girls parent here, you're interacting with daycares or throughout your personal life, what do you think you're going to be like as a parent? What's your discipline strategy? Most of them are like, oh, I'm going to discipline my child. Like, my kid's going to be well behaved. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And something I love to point out to them as your child ages, your tactic for parenting is probably going to change a lot with that. How we parent changes as our child ages. So educating and teaching them these different stages, I've found to be hugely beneficial. 0 to 1, we're looking at trust versus mistrust. How can we teach these parenting youth to build trust with their babies? Sorry. So the main thing that I teach my girls is respond to your infants when they cry. And that seems like a really obvious one. However, I have found that there are so many different opinions on this. Sometimes the girls might have gotten advice from a family member or someone else they respect of like, well, you don't want to spoil your baby, so you better give them some time. I teach our girls babies really don't know cause and effect until 8, 9 months at earliest. So when you're not responding to your baby when they cry, you're actually just showing them like, oh, can I trust mom? Is mom going to take care of me? And encouraging that bond. And we teach the girls that their everyday interactions and routines are building trust. Every time that you feed your baby, change a soiled diaper, hold them, play with them, speak kind words, anytime you're just supervising your baby, spending quality time together, or letting other people take care of the baby, you're helping that kiddo to learn trust. And that is the foundation for all parenting moving forward. I'm not sure how many of you guys are parents who are watching right now, but if you don't have that trusting connection, nothing is going to stick. I also have found that it's pretty common for parenting youth to have this idea of like, they're just a baby. Like, they're not going to remember, they're just a baby, they're fine, they're fine. And having to educate of, no, like, your baby knows. Even if they don't have a cognitive grasp of what's going on, your baby can still feel, I'm loved, I'm taken care of, I'm wanted. Moving on to the next stage, which is ages 1 to 3. We have autonomy versus shame and doubt. These are those lovely toddler years. I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, so I am deep in the throes of this psychosocial stage. Autonomy, I tell the girls at Mother's Refuge, it's just the ability to be self-sufficient and have control over your life. Autonomy means you are in the driver's seat, which is scary when your toddler wants to be in the driver's seat and do everything themselves. So how can we teach parenting youth to build autonomy with their toddlers? By allowing children to make their own choices and attempt tasks independently, of course, when appropriate. So yeah, allowing kids to have those choices and to be independent, and just teaching the teen parents, like, that's totally normal. Your kid who's throwing a fit because they want a green cup instead of a blue cup, very normal. Allow them to have choices when you can and when it makes sense. We teach that when you build autonomy in your child, you're also building confidence and self-esteem. You're teaching them that they are someone who can make their own choices and they can trust themselves to take care of themselves, and they're good. Constantly questioning or saying, like, no, you can't do that. Constantly just shutting them down might have an outcome of, can I make my own decisions? Can I trust my thoughts? Am I good enough? Another thing that's really important to go through is that all of a toddler's decisions are going to be based on their present emotions and desires rather than logic. So, I'll use an example of just putting shoes on. You have the classic example of, you're running late to the doctor's office and your toddler's like, I'm going to put my shoes on by myself. So I've heard residents here say, like, okay, we got to get going. Like, this kid plays too much. We got to go. We got to go. And when they do have more time to slow down, I have a conversation of, like, your kiddo wasn't trying to slow you down. And I tell them all the time, kids do not set out to misbehave. And when your toddler is giving you a hard time, it's important to know, like, your toddler is going through a hard time. They're not setting out to give mom or dad a hard time. Toddlers can't see past the here and now. Like, all your toddler sees is, oh, shoes, I could do that. I want to do that by myself. I want that autonomy. And it's okay. Everyone slips up. Everyone makes mistakes, of course. So maybe next time the advice I give to the parent is, okay, like, let's set our alarms a little earlier, get going a little earlier. Now that baby has become toddler, we're planning for time for them to put on their own shoes and jacket if that's what they want to do, so that you're not feeling pressed and rushed. So we don't expect our kids to meet our expectations. When kids are little, we meet them where they're at based on their psychosocial development. Of course, we have expectations for our kids, but we're not expecting them to rise to our cognitive level and do things the way we do things and be logical, and we got to be at this appointment on time. We meet them where they are at cognitively. And for those first 3 years, a kiddo is never setting out to misbehave. We are wired to want the approval and love of our parents. And it's been really helpful to say that to girls. It's been really helpful in my own life to remember they're having a hard time. They're not giving me a hard time. So while it is important to help parents know what major psychosocial development stages their children are in, it is just as critical that the professionals working with the parenting youth understand their stages as well. So we're going to pass over a couple of Erikson stages and hop into identity versus confusion. So I have a background teaching at public high school, and I went right back to teaching with teens. I don't know what it is, but something about this stage is frustrating but calls to me. I love it. So age 12 to 18, the biggest thing is identity. Who am I? Who do I want to be? There's a lot of experimentation during this age. So identity, building a strong sense of self, independence, and control. I think most of us who work with teens know that they are very self-assured. Teens got it all figured out. Um, but really there is a ton of role confusion going on. There's a lot of uncertainty, indecision, lack of direction, and a lot of fear at the heart of it of, do I like who I am? Do others like who I am? Where do I fit in? So that leaves us with exploration, trying out different interests, trying out different values and belief systems. Maybe the kid who's been raised in a Christian household their whole life is like, actually, I think I'm Buddhist now, or I am atheist. Trying different belief systems, maybe getting involved politically. If mom and dad are more conservative, trying like, what does it mean to be more liberal? To have different interests. Maybe they've played piano their whole life and now, I don't think I'm into that anymore. Maybe I want to try a whole different hobby or sport. Commitment to identity, during this stage can also be really different. Like I said, teens can be really self-assured in who they are in a given moment. And it's so funny, like they will look you boldly in the face and gaslight you of like, no, I've always been this way. You've never known the real me. They're still finding out who they are too. And just knowing what to expect as a caring adult in this kid's life, whether you're a guardian ad litem, whether you're a CASA worker, is critical. Knowing that they're gonna double down, they're gonna commit to this, just let them. It's part of who they are. It's normal developmentally for them. Just like it's normal for babies to cry when they need something. We don't punish toddlers for wanting to be independent. We shouldn't punish teens for exploring different aspects of identity. We should just expect it and meet them where they're at. Relationships are huge during this age. Evaluating current friendships and other relationships. Of course, romance is also there. We're meeting about parenting youth, so clearly there's some level of romantic interest there. Sexual identity. Again, beliefs, questioning their current belief system. For a lot of people who have grown up with some sort of faith or church background, they're considering, do I still believe this? Does this apply to me? What do I think for myself? Appearance, it can be ever changing, and appearance is everything to the adolescent. Puberty is there, becoming very self-conscious about how you look, and just taking everything in of, this is how these people dress. This is what I want to present. If there is, role confusion or wanting to try different beliefs and values, how can I express that through my outward appearance? There's also challenges that come with that. Right now, crop tops are super in, so that's a battle we fight often of what's appropriate to wear to school and whatnot. Social groups are constantly changing, and that can be really hard, really vulnerable if you've had the same friends your whole upbringing and now suddenly that's shifting because all of your friends are also going through this. It's common to drift from one job to another, or likewise from one career path to another. Today, I'm interested in being a chef. Tomorrow, oh no, I've always wanted to be a nurse. And placement. This is one that really struck me, feeling disappointed or confused about their place in life. Any one of you or myself would look at this teen and be like, oh, you have your whole life ahead of you to figure everything out. You're just getting started. But to them, they're getting older and I had a pop-up and I couldn't vote on it. Anyways, the teens are so young and they feel like it's so serious. Everything is so serious with teens and so much on their timetable. Prior to working as a teacher, I actually worked at a Montessori school with 2 to 6-year-olds. It was my summer job at the end of high school, beginning of college. And when I transitioned into being a high school teacher, I had a lot of friends and family members who were like, oh, wow, that must be like night and day from the preschool age. Actually, no, it's not. They are very similar in which developmental plane they're on. as far as wanting to be autonomous, but not really having the skills to do what they want yet. But getting to them where they have those goals in mind. So all of us have been through this adolescent stage, likely before we had children. Now imagine going through all of this and parenting on top of it. And this is development for your typical 18 to 12-year-old. A lot of these kiddos who are in the system have trauma that is also impacting their development. And I'm assuming most of you guys are really well versed in that, so I won't go too in depth, but we know that those adverse childhood experiences or those ACE scores can also leave gaps or leave hurt that are also making this stage even harder. Now you might have parenthood or pregnancy hormones to add to that. It can be a lot. Excuse me, my throat's getting a little dry. A couple of other developmental considerations. The avoidance of vulnerability is huge. Even just teens in general, it's not fun to be vulnerable, and teens are often not very forthcoming with any like emotionally intensive information. But having someone analyze or criticize, even if it's constructively, having someone analyze or criticize your parenting is incredibly vulnerable. So here at Mother's Refuge, like right now, we have 8 girls living in a group home together. We have about 20 staff members, so we have at least 2 on duty at all times. So that's a lot of opinions, right? A lot of these staff members have had their own kids, and if not, they've certainly worked with kids, had experience. And hearing like, oh, are you doing that? Or have you thought of this? Even if it's really helpful, it can be so vulnerable. I know for me, when I was deep in the throes of postpartum, after having both of my kids, actually, there were moments where I had some unproud parenting moments, and I can't imagine having had an audience to witness that. I talked a little bit earlier about how there is this youthful confidence and certainty of like, I know exactly what I'm doing. That being said, asking for help is really vulnerable. And regardless of your age, if you're a parent, you are going to need help. We've all heard it takes a village. And while we're not really living in that village setting right now, it still takes every hand on deck of help you can get. Everyone needs assistance sometimes, but for the teams that we work with, it can be really hard. It can feel like I'm a bad mom if I ask for help, or if I ask for help, they're going to know that I really don't know it all and I'm going to look stupid. Of course, we don't expect them to know it all, but that's their impression. We have that youthful confidence and certainty, strong feelings of correctness, sometimes without cause to really back up that feeling from our perspective, and just an overall unwillingness to engage in conversation or further their learning once their minds are set on a given topic. So that one is really hard to work through, but it's something to be aware of and to know this is normal. This is part of being a teenager. So feeling like, oh, I'm so right, that's how it's got to be. Like just off the top of my head, a year or 2 ago, I was giving a baby care demonstration on how to prepare a bottle made of formula. We like to give our moms a lot of baby care demos before our baby's actually here. And I remember asking like, who knows the ratio? Now for any formula, it's typically 2 ounces of milk, 1 scoop of formula. And I had a teen swear up and down, no, it's the other way. It's the other way. It's 2 scoops of formula with 1 ounce of water. I know it. Like, I've read about this. My doctor told me, I got it. And I mean, to the point that it was like not listening to others and having to show her the manufacturing. And, that was really hard for her to hear, like, oh, gosh, I just made myself look stupid. And I didn't feel that way. Of course, I didn't think she was stupid. It's an easy switch to make. But showing her, like, no, it actually is the other way was hard. And it took a lot of convincing with some solid materials. We're going to get more to that later. Another developmental consideration is influence. As we age, our influence changes drastically. Those early years where we're experiencing infancy or toddlerhood, Mom and dad are our world. Our family unit is our world. We go to school and then suddenly we have peers, we age, and then it's like, well, my peers have a lot more sway on me than my family does. So where are our teens looking for approval? Where are they seeking information? Parents do still play a role. Peers are huge. Now we've also got celebrities and technology. And I do think those spheres of influence are being more affected younger and younger. I think about social media and TikTok. For a lot of the residents that I work with, they have kids, so they're seeing all sorts of parenting content on TikTok. Some of it can be really helpful. There's some really cool stuff that I've learned on TikTok of like, here's a new way to swaddle, or here's a great recipe for your toddler. And those things are really cool. But where it does get scary is having a mom talk about, oh, I co-slept with all 3 of my kids. They've been fine. Doctors are lying to you. You know, you always have all the spectrum of opinions on anything online. So it's important to recognize, okay, this is here. It's not going away. I could tell my teen, like, yeah, get off TikTok. Don't listen to that. That's not going to happen. They're still going to be on TikTok or on social media. So teaching them, okay, when you hear a cool thing on TikTok, maybe you run it by your doctor, or we do a quick Google search and see if we can back it up. And that shows like, hey, I respect that you found this. I respect that you have this information, but it also teaches some media literacy, right? So the other day I saw this TikTok that a girl showed me of like, look, Kiri, like this is an alternative to juice. And what it was like a mom was cutting up cucumbers and watermelon and strawberries and putting them in her young baby's bottle under 12 months. So she's like, isn't this so great because juice is so sugary? So I said, wow, like, yeah, I love that that is less sugar. So we talked about the positives, but then I talked about my concerns of like, okay, what if there's a seed? Or what do you think? Like, what do you think your doctor would say? And then we were able to talk and have a good conversation of like, oh, that could really be a choking hazard. And that's why, you know, you got to vet this information that you're getting from TikTok. It can be a tool, but it can also be really hard to combat professionally. Moving on to emotional considerations. Just with any pregnancy, there are a lot of emotional consideration. It's a very emotional process. Your body's changing. You have a million hormones swirling around. You have anxieties about, is baby okay? Am I okay? Am I going to be a good mom? Are they going to interact with their siblings well? And all of the worries and stress that come with that. But being a pregnant teenager comes with its own set of emotional concerns. Many pregnant and parenting teens feel as though they are leaving an aspect of their childhood behind. And that can be really hard. Your friends and family are likely going to view you differently. You know, maybe you were daddy's little girl for a while, and now dad is seeing you as a woman who's going to be a mom. And that dichotomy can be really hard to navigate. There's a lot of aspects of youth that are given up. A lot of our girls here are like, yeah, I used to be a cheerleader, or I used to play basketball, but then I got pregnant and I can't really do that anymore because I'm a single mom. Or just, you know, not feeling like a kid because your priorities are shifting. And that's going to happen with any pregnancy, but it's important to really give teens space who are going through parenting, because they're kind of stuck in 2 places, you know. They have those regular developmental teen things and teen experiences, and those desires and normal developmental patterns are not going away, but now there's just a new reality of you have another life to take care of. And that's hard. A lot of the moms who come to Mother's Refuge come with an intent and plan to parent. But there are some who do choose to place, and we support both. Some just aren't ready to be parents. I have experienced professionally my own self, and I would love to hear your guys' experience. If you want to sound off in the comments, that would be great. But a lot of our residents who have been through foster care or have been separated from their families have this deep, deep desire to parent their child and to have autonomy and control over, like, this is my family now. So very much in 2 different developmental places at once. Along with emotional concerns, it's really important to talk about postpartum depression. Teen parents are more likely to experience postpartum depression. It is estimated that 25 to 36% of teen mothers experience postpartum depression compared with the general population average of 15% in adult women. In general, postpartum depression decreases with advancing age. I do believe that around 40, 45, we see an influx in postpartum depression again. Some studies suggest that single women are also more likely to experience postpartum depression. So, yeah, a lot of our teen parents are single parents. I would say that 95 to 98% of the moms who come through this door are single parents at Mother's Refuge. So that's really important to be aware of postpartum depression and to be aware of the risk factors. So, history of depression, which if they're in the system and they have a lot of ACE scores, or a high ACE score, I should say, they're already at risk for developing some mental health concerns. So postpartum depression is very important to be aware of. There's also some obstetric factors. Have they experienced a high-risk pregnancy, a traumatic pregnancy or childbirth that was traumatic? Like something like preeclampsia. Did you have an unplanned C-section? Did you have any other medical concern? Life stress in general. If you are pregnant, I promise you got life stress. If you are a pregnant teen, I promise you have more life stress. Hormonal changes, family history of postpartum depression, your baby's health. Parents of children going through significant medical concerns are more at risk to develop mental health challenges, such as depression, anxiety. Relationship problems. A lot of our teens are in tumultuous relationships. Pregnancy is big, and deciding to do that together is a big step. Having overall weak support systems, financial problems. Most teens are not financially prepared to parent. At that point in life, they're supposed to be focusing on high school or extracurriculars and like, hey, it's great if you have a part-time job. Now suddenly it's how am I going to take care of this other person? And if you're in the system, that's an even bigger fear. What am I going to do financially? Especially when you're relying on other agencies. Like, I don't take it lightly that our residents are relying on us, and that is vulnerable. By staying with us, they know I'm taken care of, my baby's taken care of, we're safe, we're fed, we're warm, we're clean, we have laundry. But not being able to provide those things 100% independently can be really hard for them. Another risk factor is birth order for first-time moms, or being very young mothers. They are more at risk, and gender disappointment is also very real. A lot of our girls get really excited, like, oh, I just want a boy so bad, but if I have a girl, I'm not going to be happy. The 50-50 chance most of the time. So sometimes that gender disappointment is there, and it can contribute to postpartum depression. So in summary, teens who are in foster care are at a huge risk for developing postpartum depression. It's very important to help educate them and help them know there is help available. Here are some signs. Here's what to expect. For the residents at Mother's Refuge, we do a perinatal support group, and we talk about, like, here are our postpartum mood disorders that can happen. Here's what to look like. Here's when to ask for help. And just knowing to expect it and look out for them is really helpful for us. I'm going to touch on adolescent fatherhood, although I don't have a ton of professional experience here. Young fathers are more likely to experience mental health concerns due to societal expectations, isolation of I'm just going through this by myself, and the stress of parenting. You've also got a lot of the same risk factors as postpartum depression, financial problems, life stress, relationship problems. Prevention, community engagement is, the antithesis of isolation, of how can we get this dad involved and show him there's other people in the community who have been through this, and just have him be around people. Early intervention is huge, and understanding depression in men, it's going to present very differently from women. A lot of our postpartum moms can be really weepy. Self-isolation is common. Lack of appetite. In men, it might look like hypersexuality, substance abuse, using aggression as a coping skill. So all things to keep in mind. So with all of these considerations, how do we combat this? And the answer is educate, educate, educate. So knowing everything about an adolescent's psychosocial development, the best way that we can educate a teen is to let them come to conclusions and learn for themselves when possible. So teens think they know everything, they think they're right about everything. We might have some answers for them, but our job is not to run in and fix it. I know that it's so tempting. We're older, we know better, we've been there maybe. It's so simple to just want to run in, but that's not an effective way to learn for them. So I have one resident who she's been with us for over a year, and we've gotten really close, but we've also had our moments, of course, as you would with any teen. So I have a couple stories about her that I want to share to illustrate this point. When she first came to Mother's Refuge, she was looking for a job, and we have a rule: we will transport you within a 7-mile radius of our shelter. And she found a job. It was about 13 miles away. And she said, it's fine. It's fine. I'm going to Uber Kiri. And I said, okay. Like in my head, I immediately knew, girl, you are not going to Uber. That's so expensive. You're going to be making $14 an hour. You're not going to make any money. I didn't say that because that would be really discouraging to her. And if I were to say, no, we're not doing that, that's not an option, she would probably shut down and think, wow, Kiri doesn't believe in me. Kiri thinks I don't know anything. Which is not true. I'm just a little older and I know a little better. So what I was able to tell her was, let's go to a pay stub calculator online. Here's what they're going to pay you. Here's what your paycheck is going to look like after taxes and all that good stuff. And then let's look up how much the Uber rate would be. We did the math together. She saw, oh, I'm going to be working really hard and I'm going to take home like $22 a day when it's all said and done. That's not worth it. It was way more effective for me to hear her out and support her and talk through it and be like, okay, yeah, let's just budget together. She saw Kiri believes in me, Kiri supports me, but she also learned what she needed to learn at the end of the day without wasting her time or anyone else's time. That same resident, we went car shopping once she got her license and had saved up some money. We went to a car shop on Troost. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Kansas City, but we went to a car shop on Troost, and I knew from the get-go, this place is not great. So they're talking to her about like, yeah, you can have the title after you pay off the lease. And, as an adult who's bought a few cars, I have, sirens flaring in my head. To her, this person is talking, they're a car salesman, they want to sell this car. So instead of pulling her aside and be like, no, we're not doing this, this is bad, get out. I'm like, okay, let's run these numbers. I pull her aside. It was like a 22% interest rate. We calculate what these monthly payments are going to be and how much, when it's said and done, she'll be paying for the car. And she came to the conclusion on her own of, I think I need to work a couple more months and buy a car in cash. So again, she was able to come to that conclusion for herself, and that relationship that we had was maintained. Just last night, me and this same girl who I care about so deeply, we're getting into a tiff, disagreeing, and she said some hateful things to me. And then I got to see her come into my office and apologize to me today and say, hey, we had words and I don't feel good. Are we cool? And I got to have that experience and she got to have that personal growth because I didn't run right in and stop the problem. So bringing in partners or letting them learn themselves is so much more effective and it makes them feel autonomous. Some other education resources, and these next few slides are just going to be some resources I compiled for you guys. Pregnancy. Pampers has some free courses for pregnancy, postpartum, and newborn care. There's a lot of other sites that offer similar courses. I found that our teens are not super gung-ho about taking the pregnancy classes or the childbirth prep classes that the hospitals offer. We've had some who opt to. Some have had good experiences. Others have been like, everyone else had a partner. Everyone was looking at me. I know I'm a young teen mom. It just felt vulnerable for them and it wasn't the experience they were looking for. So we've had a lot of luck with some free online courses. A lot of our moms in foster care do qualify for doula support. I think you guys are all from around Missouri and Kansas, but I know in Kansas City, we have Uzazi Village, which is an NPO that offers doula support for those who qualify financially. So having that person is awesome. The next resource I linked is Nucleus Medical Media, excuse me, which is actually a YouTube channel. I reference their videos a lot. They have really awesome graphic illustrations of the different trimesters of pregnancy, vaginal deliveries, cesarean deliveries, and just having that visualization has been really helpful for some of our teens who might not really know what's going on. I mean, I've had girls come up to my office and ask, how is this baby going to come out? And those videos was a really good tool for me. You just keep up with your teen, ask them how their prenatal appointments are going, what they're learning, if they have any questions. And I would encourage you to just share any of the positives that you experienced in your pregnancy journey. Pregnant women experience enough scare stories like, oh my gosh, my birth was horrible. It's already a scary experience. Sharing the negatives is not been helpful in my experience, but just can be really empowering to say, oh, I had a positive experience, or, you know, here's how I got through it, and here's what I did. Without making it about yourself, of course. Breastfeeding and nutrition education are huge. I found that, you know, I've had kids. I have no problem talking about breastfeeding. After you have 2 kids and you've been laid and splayed in a hospital, you're kind of just like, oh yeah, whatever, we can talk about breastfeeding. But for a teen, they're like, oh, like that's a private part of my body. I don't want to go there. So they might not feel comfortable talking to you because teens can be easily embarrassed, especially when it comes to like bodies and personal vulnerabilities. So WIC has some great breastfeeding resources. They have a buddy program to link up moms who had babies around the same time for support. They also have a peer coach program where someone who has successfully breastfed in the community can meet with them. There's a PDF breastfeeding guide, which is just like a great overarching tool. Kelly Mom is another website that provides articles about a variety of nursing topics. I would highly, highly, highly recommend a breastfeeding class. Hospitals often offer them for free, especially for financially qualifying parents. When possible, for any mom who plans to nurse, I do try to hook them up with a lactation consultant. We have some connections at Mother's Refuge who will work with us pro bono. But I do know that some lactation consultants offer sliding scales, or different states could have Medicaid coverage. It might be hard to find, but it is a possibility. When possible, it is really beneficial to bring in other community partners in order to preserve your personal relationship with the teen. So as their CASA worker, as their guardian ad litem, you have a close personal relationship with them that their adolescent development could get in the way of. If there's something you're like, man, like I know this mom is not preparing bottles right and this baby is not being fed properly, like I've got to intervene. Ask yourself, could they hear it from someone else? Because sometimes they just need to hear it from someone else. Examples could be a nurse, a doctor, a counselor, a therapist. If it's money related, a financial planner, someone from their school. The list goes on and on. So one example, we have a really young mom who gave birth in July. She was 14. Baby's umbilical cord stump fell partially off and it was bleeding. And when I say bleeding, I mean there were specks of blood. Me and the other staff members knew, yeah, that can happen. It's okay. I didn't want to say to her, she's fine. Like it happened to both my kids. They're fine, because she's 14 and she's a first-time mom. So that experience is real and is scary. And always being the one to educate can feel like you're just kind of harping and nagging and like, I don't trust you and your emotions aren't valid. So what I did was I said, okay, I don't think there's anything to be concerned about, but do you want me to call the Children's Mercy Nurse Advice Line with you and we can ask them what they think? And she said, yes. So she got to talk to a professional. They sent us a whole packet about umbilical cords. It put her mind at ease. And at the end of the day, I maintained my relationship with her and showed her how to advocate for herself and her child. We're also going to have some child development education. I would just recommend the CDC milestones to build awareness. When can you expect baby to crawl, walk, all of those things? Here at the shelter, we have some who want to put, you know, their 3-month-old baby in like a big Exa saucer. So it is important to provide that. It is important to provide that education of like, hey, we really shouldn't be doing this until closer to 6 months because they just don't have that. I can't recommend having your teen parent work with a parent educator enough. It's going to vary. You can check with your local school district. Around Kansas City, a lot of our moms meet with Easter Seals, but we also have Promise 1000, Parents as Teachers. They're going to educate a lot on child development. Great tool, free of charge. And positive discipline is another one. So knowing to discipline with those psychosocial developmental stages in mind. A great tool, Positive Discipline, the First 3 Years, is a wonderful book that helped form a lot of my knowledge and belief about positive discipline. They have a great website with a lot of tools. I've also linked a packet that I personally wrote as curriculum based off of these books and resources that I go through with our teen moms. It gives the background for positive discipline. It goes a little bit into the Erikson stuff. And then it gives 7 different alternatives to spanking, isolation, yelling. It's great to work through with our moms. So you're welcome to make a copy of that, use it for any purpose if it's helpful to you. I just want to close by saying the best thing that you can do is be a supportive and caring person in a young adult's life. You don't have to have all of the answers or resources. Just meet them where they are and have a willingness to walk alongside them. A lot has changed for these teens. And life probably isn't turning out how they expected it to so far. But just knowing that they have a caring adult who's on their side, who doesn't have to have all the answers, who doesn't have to run in and fix things for them, is so beneficial. And I just want to thank you guys for the work that you do and caring for our parenting youth. And that's all I've got.
Awesome.